we're competing with a beautiful evening out there, but then sometimes we compete with not so beautiful evenings out there. So I'd rather compete against this evening than something in a storm that prevents you from getting here. My name is Jim Randall. I'm the coordinator of the Master of Arts Island Studies program here at UPEI, and I'm also the chair of the Institute of Island Studies. It's my pleasure to chair this session tonight. What I wanted to do is just sort of introduce a little bit of the structure that we've got here. And I also wanted to make sure that I recognize the sponsors for this evening's session. We received funding from the Rural Policy Learning Commons. We also received funding from Meetings and Conventions, PEI, and funding from our Office of the Vice President, Academic and Research. And we really do appreciate the funding from all of those sources. Lori Brinklow, standing over here to my left, is the coordinator of the Institute of Island Studies, and she has in her hand a sign-up sheet. Some of you have already signed this sheet before in previous events. This is a way for us not to hound you, but it's a way for us to actually get in touch with you. If you wish us to get in touch with you and let you know about upcoming events that Island Studies is sponsoring. We promise not to sell your name and contact information to anybody else, and we promise not to bother you too much if you wish to sign up. So a little bit of the structure here for this evening's talk. Our guest speaker, Gudrun Thora, will be speaking for about 45 minutes, and then we have three panelists. And I'll introduce each of the panelists as well as Gudrun in advance of their talk, so I don't have to interrupt them after each talk. So why don't I start right at it, and I'll introduce them and tell you a little bit about them, and I'll ask Gudrun Thora to come up here and give her talk. So Gudrun Thora, and I realized initially when I was talking to Gudrun, I would only use her name Gudrun. When somebody said to me, well, think of it as Marianne. You wouldn't call Marianne Mary. So in fact, it's Gudrun Thora. And she told me at her previous job, there were 5 Gudruns there. And so they had to be able to use that second name of her given name in order to make sure they distinguished between each person. Gudrun Thora Gunnarsdottir is currently the director of the Icelandic Tourism Research Center, as you can see here, and is located at the University of Akureyri in northern Iceland. She's also a member of the advisory board of the Institute of Island Studies. Gudrun has more than 2 decades of experience in teaching and researching tourism. She holds an MBA in tourism management from the University of Guelph, Ontario, and an MA degree in comparative literature from the University of Oregon in the United States. Gudrun Thora led the development of the Department of Rural Tourism at Hólar University College that was established in 1996. She was the head of the department from its inception until 2009 and an associate professor until 2016. And her research interests have focused on tourism and rural areas and destination development. Bill Kendrick, since 2006, with his wife Mary, have owned and run Experience PEI. And Experience PEI, for those of you who aren't aware of it, is a company that's dedicated to offering unique, hands-on learning experience for visitors to Prince Edward Island. They also do experiential tourism product development, consulting and assisting others to create authentic experiences in their own communities. Prior to this, Bill also ran Island Images Inc., a freelance TV production business, working mostly in documentaries. And they've also co-owned in the past, the Briarcliff Inn for 13 years. And prior to that, Bill worked for CBC Television for 20 years, including a stint as the executive producer of Country Canada. And he's past chair of the product development committee of the Red Sands Tourism Group. Ann Worth is one of our other panelists, and Ann is currently the executive director of Meetings and Conventions PEI and has been for the last 2 years. She's also the owner of a little gift company specializing in retailing gifts unique to PEI. She's also the president and owner of Worth Consulting Group and has been for 12 years. She was formerly the executive director of the PEI Aquaculture Alliance and also director of operations for Cows Inc. and Anne of Green Gables Chocolates. And a graduate of the UPEI Business School. I don't know if this building was here when you were here, Anne, or not? Okay. Ed MacDonald is our last panelist, and Ed has a BA in History and English from the University of Prince Edward Island and an NA and a PhD in History from Queen's University. Dr. Ed, as he's sometimes known in the community, he began his career as a curator for the PEI Museum and Heritage Foundation in 1985, where he also edited its popular history journal, The Island Magazine. His book, If You're Strong-Hearted, Prince Edward Island in the 20th Century, was awarded the PEI Museum's Heritage Award, as well as an Outstanding Achievement Award from the Canadian Museum Association. He's most recently co-edited the book, monograph Time and a Place, An Environmental History of Prince Edward Island, and has also written and co-authored nearly 50 articles for publication. And he's in the finishing stages, Ed, of writing a book on the history of tourism in PEI. Just a reminder, I think I'll stop right there and I'll ask Gudrun Thor to start, and then I'll pick up after all of the speakers have spoken. So Gudrun Thor.
Thank you. Hi everybody, nice to be here, and thank you very much for inviting me to this beautiful island, and thank you for this nice weather. As an Icelander, I know how we appreciate when we get days like this, and I'm just surprised that you are here, not outside. As an Icelander, I would be probably in the garden or something, having a glass of wine. So I hope we will have a nice night here. Tim, where do I switch between?
You're already on there, so it's already starting. I'll just bring this back out again.
Yeah, it's here. Sorry.
Straight there.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Just to be clear. Tonight I'm just gonna briefly talk about and introduce Iceland to you. Maybe some people, how many have been to Iceland maybe? Oh, a lot of people. Okay, but not all. And then I want to give you a little bit of overview of Icelandic tourism and with a particular focus on rural tourism. And then because we have experienced such a boom, such a growth in tourism in Iceland in the recent years, which is really changing everything in Iceland. So I will dwell a little bit on that, and also on the challenges that we face in sharing space with tourism as a result of this growth. So here's Iceland. For those of you who are not familiar with the location, we are there in the middle of the yellow ring, and you see we are in the Atlantic Ocean, far away from everything. And just very few basic facts. We are a very young, geologically speaking country, and hence the volcano activity that you might have heard of, or maybe experienced, I don't know. We are, a cold island, as you expect when you hear the name, but not as cold than maybe some people think when they hear Iceland. But we have, like you have here, weather that varies quite a bit. It can be really warm, and then it changes fast, and it will be cold in a second. And you can't rely on a summer in July. It can snow, it can be beautiful, and we can have really hot weather in January. So it's typical North Atlantic island weather. And we are not only young, geologically speaking, we are also young historically speaking. We were the last country in Europe that became settled. So the settlement, we trace that back to 874. And we are quite fortunate. We have a lot of documents about our settlement. And people who like history, they can trace their genealogy back to the settlers in Iceland, who were mostly people from Norway, but also from Ireland and the Scottish Islands, mostly women from there, because the Vikings took some redhead women with them on the way to Iceland. Iceland was, until the very late 19th century, really a country existing of farmers. There were no towns in Iceland up to then. So that probably has really some kind of an imprint on our psyche. We're used to space. We're not used to sharing space with other people. This is changing quite a bit now. And since 2000 we have had considerable immigration. and now 8% of the labor are international migrants. And as some of you may have heard about, Iceland got very hard hit by the economic crisis, 2008. There was a complete collapse. Our bank collapsed, and it was really a difficult time. But we have recovered remarkably fast, or our economy has recovered remarkably fast, and that is basically because of tourism. So here are a little bit more facts about Iceland. As you can see, Iceland is about 20 times larger than your island. So we have a lot of space to share with other people. But as you can also see, a high percentage of the country is about 300 meters. So it's basically Iceland. It's highlands, the interior is completely uninhabited. We have the population is spread around the coastal line. And we don't have those lush green hills as you have here. As you can see, there's only 23% of the surface vegetated. But we have a lot of glaciers, a volcano, and black sand deserts. Just to give you a little bit of an idea about the size of tourism in Iceland, it is now by far the largest industry. And you can see the change happened in 2013-14. It used to be that fisheries were our main industry, and it still is, of course, a very, very important export industry, but now tourism has surpassed that, and also the aluminium sector. There's been a huge increase in tourism-related jobs, and you can see, judging from the numbers of people working in the tourism, has changed quite a bit since 2009, when it was 8%. And now it's actually, today it's actually around 15% this year. So it's an important sector, definitely, for our economy. And one of the reasons for Iceland to be that successful tourism destination is the fact that we are located in the middle of North America and Europe. And the Icelandic airline, Icelandair, has made advantage of this location in the network, the route network. So you can see that Icelandair connects, and there are actually cities missing on these photos, because they have been increasing the number of cities in both North America and in Europe just recently. But you can see there are a number of direct flights from North America to Iceland, and they fly into Iceland in the morning usually, and then continue to Europe in the afternoon. And this has made Iceland very accessible, and that's quite important, because good access to a destination is a key thing in tourism development. And the other Icelandic airline, WOW Air, which is a much younger company, has also used the same kind of model for their network. And just to get you some idea why people come to Iceland, you might tell me afterwards why you went to Iceland. But in general, what we see from the surveys is that, of course, nature is the main draw, which is maybe not so surprising. But what we find also is that the word of mouth is quite important in creating an interest for people to travel to Iceland. And this is extremely important in the day of social media. So it is important to be known there, and that seems to have been successful for Iceland. Our main markets are now the US market and the UK market. This is a recent phenomenon. Maybe before 2010, the German-speaking market was by far the most important single market for us, and as well as the Nordic countries. But the percentage of those, of people from those countries have been going down relatively compared to those, both US and UK markets. And the increase from those countries, of course, is because of the increased availability of direct flights. So there are many direct flights from all kinds of cities in the US, not only by Icelanders and Bauer, but also by British Airways and many other low airfare companies. So this has changed a lot, and what we are also seeing in the just recent 2 years is a big increase from China, from Chinese tourists. And we will see more of that this year, we know that, and the coming years, because we see that airlines like Helsinki Air, that is kind of a gateway from China to the Nordic countries, is now flying directly from Helsinki to Iceland, and then they fly directly to Beijing. So there's a much better connection, so there will be increase. We don't know what this will mean. I will maybe touch upon that later. But every market has their specialities and special requirements, and that can change the tourism landscape quite a bit. So it is actually important to know who is coming and what they're doing. And since we are a little bit focusing on rural areas, those markets some of them are not so important for rural areas in Iceland. For example, the US market tends to stay only in the capital region and the close vicinity.